Today, we're going to dive into the life of an absolute force of nature, a man whose pen literally roared like a revolution, but whose songs could also speak to the deepest parts of your soul. We're talking about Kazi Nazrul Islam, Bengal's legendary rebel poet. Just let that sink in. This one line from his most famous poem, Bidrohi, which means the rebel, it's basically the key to his entire being. This isn't just poetry, you know? It's a mission statement. It's the sound of a spirit that absolutely refused to be crushed by poverty, by empire, or by tragedy. It's the voice a whole nation would rally around.
So here's our game plan. We're going to trace his incredible journey, from his tough childhood to the moment he found that revolutionary voice. Then we'll see how he took on an entire empire with just his pen, created this timeless world of music, and finally, how a tragic silence actually made him immortal.
So you gotta ask, where does a spirit that fiery come from? Well, for Nazrul, it was forged in the fire of a really difficult childhood. And that's where our story has to begin. Okay, so picture this. Nazrul is born into a poor family in rural Bengal. Life is already hard. And then, when he's just 10 years old, his father dies. Suddenly, he has to step up, working at the local mosque to support his family. This early weight of the world on his shoulders earns him the nickname Duku Mia, which means the sorrowful man. It's such a heavy name for a little boy, but you can see how all that pain would later be channeled into some seriously powerful art. But here's the thing about creative sparks. They find a way. Even with all that hardship, he found an outlet. He joined a local Leto Dal, which was basically a traveling folk theater group. Now, think about that for a second. His first real classroom wasn't a school. It was a stage. He was thrown right into this world of poetry, music, and drama, learning to write and perform on the job. This was the real start of his education, shaping the artist he was always meant to be. And that experience, well, it set the stage perfectly for the next chapter, a chapter that would take him far away from his little village and start the real transformation of Duku Mia, the sorrowful man, into the rebel poet. So when he's 18, Nazrul does something totally unexpected. He joins the British Indian Army. He gets stationed way out in Karachi, so far from home, and his world just explodes. He's learning new languages, reading all this literature, and crucially, he's seeing the British Empire from the inside. That short time in the army was the turning point. It gave him a whole new perspective and, it lit the fuse for the fire to come. He leaves the army, moves to Calcutta, which is the absolute hub of culture and politics, and then in 1922, it happens. He drops a poem that just sends shockwaves through the entire literary scene. Bidrohi. It made him a star overnight and basically defined who he was from that moment on. I mean, the poem was just a volcano of feeling. It was this massive celebration of rebellion against every single kind of oppression, whether it was social, political, or religious. With Bidrohi, he wasn't just, writing a nice poem. He was handing a megaphone to the voiceless, giving a roar to the oppressed. It's no surprise at all that people immediately started calling him the Bidrohi Kobi, the rebel poet. He earned that title. Now, with this newfound fame, Nazrul didn't just kick back and write poetry. Nope, he declared war. And his main weapon in the fight for India's independence was his pen. He started a magazine called Dhumketu, which means the comet, and he was not subtle about its mission. It was a direct call for total freedom from the British. He published poems like Bhangar Gan, literally the song of destruction, telling people to smash their chains. So, yeah, he was playing with fire. And you can bet the British Empire noticed. His work was called seditious, and he kept getting arrested for it. I mean, look how fast it all happened. He starts the magazine in 22. By 23, he's locked up. But putting him in jail didn't shut him up. In 1924, he went on a 40-day hunger strike to protest how political prisoners were being treated. His defiance became so legendary that even the great poet Rabindranath Tagore sent a message begging him to stop. But here's the thing. If you only see Nazrul as this political rebel, you're missing, half the picture. The guy behind the rebellion was also an artistic genius and a man of incredible love and depth. Just look at this number. 4,000. That's not a typo. That's roughly how many songs the man composed and set to music. He created a whole new genre of Bengali music called Nazrul Giti, Songs of Nazrul. I mean, that is a mind-blowingly huge creative output, mixing everything from classical music to folk traditions. And he didn't stop there. He's the guy who really brought the ghazal, this beautiful, poetic form from Persia and Arabia, into the Bengali language. He took its classic themes of love and longing and injected them with his own brand of spirituality and, yes, even revolution. He completely changed the game. His personal life was just as radical as his poetry. In 1924, Nazrul, a Muslim, married Pramila Devi, a Hindu woman. Now, you have to understand, at that time, this was an incredibly brave thing to do. It flew in the face of all the rigid religious rules. But it was proof of what he truly believed, that we're all human first. And that's a theme you see everywhere in his work, from poems about justice to songs about universal love. But this incredible life, this unstoppable creative force, this voice of rebellion, was about to take a truly devastating and tragic turn. It's just brutal how it happened. In 1942, when he was only 43 years old, right at the absolute peak of his creative genius, a mysterious illness struck him down. He lost his voice, then his memory started to go. The most powerful, most defiant voice in all of Bengali literature was just silenced, suddenly, inexplicably. For a decade, nobody knew what was wrong. Finally, in 1952, doctors in Vienna diagnosed him with Pick's disease, a rare, incurable brain disorder. He lived for more than 30 years in silence. But then, in 1972, something incredible happened. The brand new nation of Bangladesh invited him to come live there. And in this beautiful, profound move, they made him a citizen and, in 1976, named him their national poet. They immortalized the man who had fought for their nation's spirit long before the nation itself even existed. He passed away that same year and was buried as a national hero. So, what's the big takeaway here? Nazrul's legacy is just immense. He's the national poet of Bangladesh, a musical trailblazer, the forever symbol of fighting back against oppression. But, maybe his most powerful legacy is his unshakable belief in our shared humanity. In a world where we can be free from tyranny and from religious division. Which leaves us with one last big question to chew on. Nazrul's actual voice was taken from him for the last 34 years of his life. But his rebellion, his ideas, his poems, his songs, it never went silent. In fact, it might have gotten louder. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? When a rebel's voice is silenced, is that the moment their rebellion becomes truly immortal, living on in every single person they inspired?